What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be giving the buyer's guide for like Christmas and holidays and stuff for the Nintendo Switch. This list is going to be broken down into pricing categories, but this time I've only gone with two. So there's going to be under $30 and over $30. Games will be listed in family friendly first, just like last time, followed with the more mature titles, and a small graphic like this will be used to signal the difference. Okay? All games, as well as categories, will be timestamped below the like button, so check that out when you're looking for something specific. Naturally, with the size of this list, I won't be going into super great detail on any of the games, so if you need more of that, let me know. I'll link any reviews I do have. Most of these games are going to be of the physical variety, as that just tends to lend itself to better deals. But, of course, most of these you can get in the digital-only version as well. So, for this list, I pretty much kept it to GameStop, Amazon, or the Nintendo eShop. I'll let you know as we go which ones you can find them at and what seems to have the best price. Lastly, I'm listing these games at their standard price, not at a sale. So if you can find them on sale, which you should be able to do, especially with like Black Friday coming up, then you should be able to get them even cheaper than I list them here. But I didn't want to list a price that wouldn't be there if you checked it out later. So all that out of the way, let's get started with games under $30. First up, we have Kitaria Fables. Now, this is kind of a, Harvest Moon or Rune Factory style game with cute, like, cat characters at its base. It's a fun, farming RPG. It's a good time, great for younger audiences as well. So this one runs you about $19 or so at Amazon. Good option for a present for a little one. Next up, we got No Kuni 2. This is another great RPG. It's good for both adults and the younger kids. This game has a really vibrant art style. It's Studio Ghibli, so it's very, very beautiful. It's a fun art style. The story's pretty good. The action combat's fun. There's some city builder elements to it. It's a pretty fun game. It'll last you a good amount of time. Kids, like it. Adults like it. So it's definitely worth it. I think this one's a little bit better than the first one. While I think the first one might have a better overall story, the gameplay in the second one is much better. But both are options and will run you about $20 at GameStop. Next up, in similar vein to the first title, we have Rune Factory 4 Special. I'll talk about the fifth one a little bit later, but for Special, you can actually play it on Game Pass, so if you have that, that's an option. But if you're doing it on the Switch, it runs you about $28 or so at GameStop. This is kind of a farming sim RPG. There's some combat, there's, talking with characters, there's some farming, building, pretty fun stuff. The character's very animated. It's a good time and good for both adults and kids. Next up, we got Cat Quest 1 and 2. You can get either one on the eShop and they run you about $15 a piece, but if you go physical edition, you can get both of them together and that'll run you about just under $30. And that's at Amazon. Now, this is a great game. The first one is a single player, so know that going in. But the second one, you can play two-player co-op with, two adults. You can play with your kids. I love playing with my kids. It's a fun kind of Diablo-style action RPG. They love it because it's cutesy and fairly easy to understand. But the truth is they might, depending on how young and how much they play, they might need you there to kind of play with them to get through some of the harder stuff. It's a good time though. We have a lot of fun, and they have lots of puns and stuff. They're fun. The third one's coming out soon too, so that's another one you can keep your eye out on. Next up is Monster Hunter Stories 2. Now this is a kind of a JRPG version of a Monster Hunter game. It's very kid friendly, but it's a cool story. You almost Pokemon-esque style where you gather monsters, you get new eggs, and you raise new monsters, and you use them in combat and stuff. It's really pretty fun. It gets a little bit slow the longer you go. It never seems to speed up, but it's still really fun. You get to make new armor and all that kind of good stuff that you would expect from a Monster Hunter, but it's got a little bit more story to it, and The combat is a little easier to understand. It's got like a rock, paper, scissors thing. It's a good time. That'll run you about $28 at GameStop, but only a couple bucks more if you want to go Amazon. So that's a good option. Next up, I'm actually going to cover a whole series here, and that's Final Fantasy. The 1st through the 9th game. You have the pixel remasters that cover 1 through 6, and then 7, 8, 9 in kind of a remastered form, right? Those are all available on Switch, and they're all give or take 20 bucks, right? Some of them are cheaper end, like 10, 12, and then others come up to that $19.99. But these are all good games. Now, some of the later ones from, I believe, 6 on go actually to that teen rating, so you'll have to kind of use your own judgment as far as your kids go. But for anyone older, you know, probably older than 10, 11, depending on your kids, they're great options. They're really fun games. Some of the older ones can, you know, feel a little clunky by today's standards, but they're good classic RPGs. They have good stories, fun mechanics, and they're just always a good option. Gotta love Final Fantasy. All right, so some of these are gonna have that teen rating, right? So they probably are okay for some kids. You have to kind of make your own discretion, of course, right? But to start off with, we have For the King. This is a cool tabletop style RPG, almost like you're playing a board game. It has a little bit of roguelike elements, but it's a cool story. It's a good game. You can play it co-op as well, so it's really fun to do it that way. And that'll only run you about $20 at GameStop. So that's a great option. Another one coming up, we got Banner Saga Trilogy. Banner Saga is a super cool like strategy RPG, but you make choices along the way, and they're not really like visual style, but like you'll be traveling and then something will come up and they'll tell you something's happening and you make a choice. Depending on your choice will vary the outcome of what's happening in the story. It's very fascinating. I love the idea of these games. The first one was tremendous, and the second and third ones only improved. So high recommendation for that. That'll only run you about $20 at GameStop. It's a whole trilogy. There's 3 of them. They're pretty short individually, but it'll run a full length game if you have the 3. Highly recommend that one. Next up is Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. You can get this for about $20 at GameStop. This is a great action RPG. It's big and lots to explore. The combat can be pretty difficult depending on how you're used to it. You have a cool pawn system. You make your own character, outfit them, outfit your pawn. You can get pawns from friends, so you can have other people who are playing it. It's lots of gameplay, lots to do. Interesting stories. It can feel a little slow sometimes because they didn't add a lot of fast travel stuff. So you got to actually travel from place to place. Although in Dark Arisen they did give you a little more leeway in that, so that's kind of nice. But this is a really great game, and with the second one on the way, might be worth a pickup to get playing before that second one arrives. Next up is Trials of Mana. This is a fun kind of short JRPG. You have 6 characters and you pick the 3 before you even start. You kind of get their stories. You can replay it with the other 3 and get a little different view of the stories in different parts. It's fun, it's fast paced, it's not too difficult for the most part. It had some spikes. I do have a review for this one, so you can check that out down below. But Trials of Mana is a good, fun RPG. It's nothing amazing or incredible. It's not going to blow your socks off, but you can get it for about $24 at Amazon, in between that and $30 at GameStop, and it's a really fun option. It goes on sale all the time, so you can get it $20 or less pretty often. Very much worth it on that. Definitely recommend giving that one a go. Next up is SMT5, meaning Shin Megami Tensei 5. This is a far more mature game, so I don't recommend having your kids play this one. It is surprisingly cheap. You can get it regularly $25 at GameStop and Amazon. This is Persona without the kind of social elements, right? It's just basically dungeon crawling, monster fighting, evolving and growing your demons and going out and fighting. There is story. It's a good story too. The fighting is good. It can get difficult, especially if you're not used to this kind of game. There's a lot of kind of min-maxing that matters and making sure you have the right type of attacks to attack the enemy and all that kind of stuff. But really, really good. I think some people like the music in this game. I do not. It kind of gives a lot of this just kind of eerie, vibe, and that's interesting at first, and then it gets old really quick. So I would recommend you maybe, you play it and have earbuds in with music. Might make it a little better. But either way, it's a great game and definitely worth your time. Next up is Tales of Vesperia. Now, you can more or less kind of switch it out for any other Tales option. There is a new one that just came out that's getting really high remarks. That's the second story R. That is $50, so that would be later. But Vesperia, you can get $25 or less at GameStop, and it is a wonderful JRPG. It's got this old-fashioned Tales action combat. It's good main character, good supporting cast, great time, good story. You just can't go wrong. It's definitely a good pickup. Next up is Disgaea 5 Complete. Now, Disgaea 5 is a strategy RPG. It's funny, it doesn't take itself too seriously. It is kind of ridiculous with the amount of numbers it throws at you, how in-depth you can go on every little thing. But it's very fun, it's very approachable, and especially compared to some of the maybe other Disgaea games, or especially other strategy RPGs. It's fun. It can be really in-depth, but you don't have to do that. It's a good time. I really enjoyed this game. It only runs you about $28 at GameStop, and yeah, definitely worth picking up there. Next up is Battle Chasers Nightwar. This is a JRPG in this style game. It's very cool, turn-based, has an awesome art style, interesting characters, good story. I really enjoyed my time with this one. I think it's a very kind of under the radar RPG, but it's fun. It's a good game. There's also Rune King if you want to try that. It's very similar, but that's in the Riot universe, in the League of Legends stories. But very, very, very good. And same team, very good style. So highly recommend those. Give them a shot. They run you about $28 at GameStop. The Rune King can only be bought digitally, so the eShop, and Battle Chasers might be cheaper there as well. But if you want physically, it's at GameStop for under $30. Next up, we have The Outer Worlds. Now, The Outer Worlds is that kind of Fallout-based style game from Obsidian. And it's very good. It's very well written. The action is good. It's not the best combat you'll ever see, but it's good enough. It serves its purpose. The characters are deep and well written. That's really Obsidian's strength, right? Is their writing. And so the other stuff is good, and it plays into it, but it is the writing that sets them apart. And so, if nothing else, it's worth a shot for that. But I enjoyed it. I found it fun, and yeah, definitely worth a go. Especially, it only runs you about $28 or so at GameStop, and yeah, worth that price for sure. Next up, we're kind of digging back into the well of that Final Fantasy, and I'm going a little bit newer with 10 and 12. Both of these will run you about $30, whether Amazon or GameStop. So just, look around, see which one looks better and for you. But the 10 and 10-2 is a bundle, or 12, the Zodiac Age. They're both very good. 10 has that really cool turn-based style where you can switch your teammates at any time, and the sphere grid, which is really cool. 12 has a little different combat, a little more in the style like Xenoblade or something, a little MMO-ish, but still interesting and fun combat. Both have good stories, and definitely, anything Final Fantasy I think is at least worth a shot. They're not all perfect, but worth your time to engage in and see what you think. Yeah, so these also they are teen on rating boards, but depending on a kid, they probably can be played by most kids. Most of us, if you're my age, we played when we were pretty young. So yeah, definitely worth a look at for those. All right, coming up next, we have Diablo 3. Now, if you can, I recommend the Reaper Edition, anything that has all the DLC, but the truth is, anything you want in that realm, they're all $30 or less. A lot of times you can find them $20, but the one with them, get one with a lot of the DLC, so you have tons and tons of content. It's a good action RPG. Depending on your taste, a lot of people didn't like 3, but I know a lot that did and can play tons and tons of hours. So, if it looks fun to you, definitely recommend it. It's not like 1 and 2, so if you never played 3 and you have high, great memories of 1 and 2, look at some videos of 3 first and make sure that's what you want. I still think it's fun. It's a good time. You can play it co-op as well, and that's always fun. Probably the best way to do it. So yeah, that's $30 or less Amazon, GameStop, whatever. So definitely recommend taking a look there. Next up is Neo, The World Ends With You. This is a sequel of sorts to The World Ends With You. It's got its own unique characters. It's got a very unique battle system that I think is very cool. The art style is flashy, very fun. And yeah, it's about $30 or a little less at GameStop, and definitely worth a go. It's a cool, fun JRPG. It's very unique, and definitely worth a look. And the last one at this category is Rune Factory 5. Now, this again has that teen rating. Probably could play by kids, but that's you gotta make your own thought there. But this is that farming sim, life sim RPG. There's action combat. There's developing relationships with people in town. There's managing your farm. There's all kinds of good stuff. It's a fun loop. I love these kinds of games if they're done well. We got another one kind of like it coming up later as well. So these are very popular on the Switch, right? But I think they're a good time, and this one runs $30 or less at Amazon. So definitely worth a pickup if that interests you at all. Okay, moving on to the above $30. Now, there is a lot that we can pick from in both categories, and I'm sure I'm missing some. So if you have ones I'm missing, you want to let me know in the comments, absolutely do that, right? That helps all of us find more games. As I pick through, I look through lists of these games and pick the ones that make sense to me, that I think a lot of people might like, that are a gift that someone would like for Christmas. It doesn't mean I got them all. It doesn't mean I make all the right choices, right? We all have our own thoughts and stuff. So let me know in the comments if you disagree or have something I missed, okay? Now, starting right off, we're just going to talk Pokemon real quick. Basically, any of them. Be careful with the newest ones. The Scarlet and Violet, apparently they have a lot of bugs and stuff. But basically, any Pokemon, right? They're fun for adults, but obviously kids love them. They're very kid friendly. They're fun. They're engaging. They're great kind of starter JRPG games. They're just good. They're Nintendo only, so you can only play them on the Switch. Now, typically you're looking at $60 minimum, but there are some now, Sword and Shield and Shining Pearl and Brilliant Diamond, you can find cheaper at GameStop, sometimes as low as $35, maybe even lower on sale. So, keep an eye out for those, but basically any Pokemon is worth your time, right? And if you're buying, especially for like a kid or something, just make sure they don't have the one you're getting them, and you should be good. Next up, I got Sea of Stars. Now this is eShop only. Okay, it's $35. It's new this year, but I gotta recommend it. It was a tremendous RPG from Sabotage Studios. Really great story, amazing characters, good combat and systems, very, very fun. It's good for kids, it's good for adults. It's awesome. Highly recommended. Give that one a go. All right, next up, I got Dragon Quest Builders 2. Now, there is the first one, but the second one is by far better, so I just would recommend going there. You runs you about $40 at GameStop. A lot of times you can find it cheaper. $20 or so is really common, but it's fun. It's a Minecraft mixed with Dragon Quest. You get combat, you get building, you get crafting, all the stuff you would expect from that. But it's kind of cool, especially like if you don't do Minecraft very much, but you don't mind the idea of it. In Dragon Quest Builders, you get like blueprints where you can say have a house that you have the blueprint for, and you just have the parts and it just pops the house up. You don't have to individually place every block. I think that was a great idea. It's a good game. It's fun to play. You can play with your kids and whatever, help them do stuff. It's a good time. Definitely recommend that. Next up, we got one that's a little bit of a cheat. Okay, a little bit of a cheat here, but it comes out as of the time of this video releasing. It'll come out tomorrow, and that is Super Mario RPG. Okay, this is a remake of a tremendous game from the SNES back in the day. Super Mario RPG is a awesome game. Love it, and this remake looks incredible. I can't, of course, speak to the quality about bugs and stuff, but Nintendo is pretty good about that, so I think you'll be safe. It's pretty safe to pick this one up. This one looks good. It's going to be $60 no matter where you get it. It's brand new, so that just is what it is, unless they bumped it to 70, but I don't think so. I think it's 60. And yeah, high recommendation. It's going to be good. It's a good game. It should be great. First up, we got Persona 5 Royal. You can get that for $40 at GameStop. I don't know why it's cheaper on Switch than on the PlayStation, but it is, so that's fine. That's a mature game. Don't give it to your kids, okay? But yeah, $40 deal. Okay, this game is huge. It's massive. There's tons to it. Wonderful game. Love that one. So definitely pick that up. Next up is The Witcher 3. Now this one I recommend sparsely. Okay, it is a way better experience on a computer or a different console. But it is playable here. So if you only have a Switch, or whoever you're buying for only has a Switch, then it's fine. Go ahead and get it for him. It's still a good game. It's still a good experience, but it's just way better on the other. So if you have another option, do it that way. But handheld, it can be good. If they only have this, it's a good option. Next up, we have Live Alive. That's another $40 at GameStop. This is a awesome remake of a old game that never came west from Square Enix. And it's a tremendous RPG. It's actually very similar to something like Saga Frontier. You have or Octopath, where you have 8 different characters. They kind of have their own stories, and then eventually they kind of meet, right, and have a combination there. Very, very cool. It's a fun game. Art style is amazing. Definitely give that one a recommendation. Next up is Nier Automata. Now this one is $40 at Amazon. You probably get it cheaper pretty regularly. But Nier Automata is a amazing action RPG. You have lots of opportunities to replay the game if you want, but you don't have to. It has great story, amazing platinum combat. I mean, just good stuff. It's definitely worth your time. And yeah, to have it on the go is pretty incredible. Like The Witcher, though, it is a better experience on other platforms. So if you can do it on those, I recommend that first. But it's still good on the Switch, and so definitely worth your time on that. Next up is Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE Encore. Where do they come up with these names, man? Jeez Louise. This will run you about $40 at GameStop. This is a kind of a mix of Fire Emblem and I don't know. This is a JRPG that deals with kind of Fire Emblem-esque, but a normal turn-based combat style. It gets pretty good remarks, actually. I've heard nothing but good things. I haven't played this one myself, but I've heard only good things about it, and so definitely worth a look, right? To see if it looks like your thing. Everyone fights with instruments, which is interesting, but yeah, could be good. It looks good. Everyone says it's good, so yeah, $40 at GameStop, worth a go. Next up is Dragon Quest XI S. This also will run you $40 at GameStop. This is a tremendous RPG, right? It's a big story. It's a Dragon Quest, so it has that cool Akira Toriyama art style, Dragon Ball-esque. It's fun. It's good characters, good story. The combat is basic but serviceable. The exploration, the towns, some of the best towns that you've ever seen in a game are in Dragon Quest XI. Loved this game. Really enjoyed my time with it, and definitely recommend you give it a shot. Next up, we got Harvestella. This is that game I talked about that has the farming sim and action combat. This is a very cool add to the genre, okay? This came from Square Enix, and it's a little bit more, it's not so chibi, right? It's got a little more of that anime art style, the standard anime. It's a little more grown up looking. Cool looking characters. You got farming that's good. You got action combat that's good. You got a good story. Definitely worth your time. You can only get it on the Switch or the PC, so it's not even an option if you have another console. And this will run you about $45 at GameStop. And yeah, but it very cool, and definitely recommend giving that one a look. All right, next up we have Xenoblade Chronicles. Take your pick, 1, 2, or 3. I think a lot of people would recommend you start with 1 and then work through, but 3 looks the best to me. I haven't played them. I really want to. That's on my bucket list, right? One of these days, my pile of shame, I'll get to eventually. But these games are huge RPGs with grand stories, characters, lots and lots to do, hundreds of hours people can put into them, and yeah, they look great. High regards from people, and 3 great games. They're gonna run you basically $60, although I've seen sometimes that different ones will be $45 either at GameStop, or maybe this one's $45, $50 at Amazon. But it's all kind of in that range, so I'd basically set aside $60 for it. but they're big, incredible RPGs, and definitely one to have on the list. All right, next up we're talking Fire Emblem. Now, Engage you can get for $45 at GameStop. Three Houses is pretty much still $60 across the board. Although I'm sure you could look around and find them somewhere else cheaper, or again wait for a deal. But Fire Emblem is a strategy RPG with big stories, usually pretty in-depth customization. They're fun. I really enjoyed Three Houses. It got a little stale for me towards the end, but the combat is good. The mechanics of building your team is really fun. I love that stuff. Figuring out the classes and min-maxing their abilities to make sure that they are as strong as you can make them. You can play them on the hardcore difficulty, which is standard, right? It's kind of where the difficulty you can change. You can also change whether there's permadeath or not. And so that gives a little flexibility if this isn't really your typical style. But yeah, Fire Emblem is a wonderful franchise and definitely worth your time, even if you don't like the toothpaste character. Okay, good stuff. Highly recommend doing that. Next up, we have Ys 8. Ys 8 is a wonderful JRPG, action RPG. It's got fast combat. It's got a cool story. The characters are fun. Really love this. I believe you can get 9 on Switch as well, but don't quote me on that. I'll probably actually just edit it out. But Ys 8 is about $50. I feel like that should be on sale, so I would probably wait and not pick it up at $50. But just keep an eye on it. It's a tremendous game. I highly recommend that one. Loved it. It's really good. Next up, we have Crisis Core. Now, this is the remake of Crisis Core. It's available on everything. It's about $50, no matter where you pick it up, unless you find it on sale or whatever. But this is the addition, kind of a side story to Final Fantasy VII. Right? And if you either love the original or are picking up the original, this is a good part to play. If you also have a PS5 and are playing, the remake trilogy, this is a cool part to that story that will introduce or a little bit more in-depth characters that are involved in that, right? So definitely recommend giving this one a go. I should have recommended it for PlayStation, but I forgot. Whatever. I forgot all that games for that. That's okay. Yeah, definitely recommend picking this one up. Crisis Core is a good time. It's worth your effort. Yeah, pick that one up. Next up is Tactics Ogre Reborn. This is another remake. We've had quite a few of those, but this is a remake of an old strategy RPG. This is in-depth though, okay? Out of all the strategy RPGs, Disgaea or Fire Emblem, this one I think is the most involved. So if you are not a fan of strategy RPGs, probably don't pick this one up. But if you do like them, it's worth your time. It's very engaging. There's a lot to do, a lot to manage. You got to be careful on how you build your team. You have to, manage the way you put teams together and having other teams to manage other issues. It's very good. Well written, I think. It's got cool story, good characters, good combat. That one runs about $50 at Amazon. Again, I think you can probably regularly find that cheaper. So just keep it in mind. Coming up next is Octopath Traveler 2. Now, there is the first one. The first one, though, doesn't really hit for me. So if it looks interesting, feel free. But just remember in the first one, those 8 characters, their stories don't intermix. They don't really banter. They don't really get involved with each other. It's kind of a bummer. There's still a lot of cool things about it. Music's incredible and combat's still good. But the story is kind of a bummer. In the second game, my understanding, I haven't gotten to it yet, but my understanding is that a lot of that is fixed. The story has a lot of weight to it, and it's very good, and there's banter between characters and stuff. And so definitely think out of the 2, I would recommend that. You don't need to play the first one to play the second one. They are not on top of each other like that. They're separate games, and this will run you $60 no matter where you get it. It's brand new. But yeah, definitely recommend Octopath Traveler 2. It looks absolutely incredible. That HD 2D art style is gorgeous. And yeah, absolutely looks amazing. I have some friends who have played it who loved it, and so it is right at the top of my list to play, and definitely recommend it for you. Next up, we got Triangle Strategy. This is probably my favorite RPG on the Switch. I loved this game. This is another strategy RPG. There is a lot to it. Probably not quite as in-depth as the Tactics Ogre remake, but it is very good. There's lots of characters you get. There's branching narratives. Your choices matter a lot in this game, which is very cool. The way you upgrade your characters will affect things. It's very, very good. I loved the story. I thought Sarah Noah was a great main character. The story as a whole was just tremendous. I really, really loved it, and definitely recommend giving that a go. And lastly, we have Bravely Default 2. This is, again, it's a Switch exclusive, but it's kind of got an interesting art style, but the combat is very fun. The different job classes, the way you upgrade them, the way you learn abilities and stuff, the different tactics you can do to beat bosses. I found a really fun tactic that I loved using. It was a little OP and carried me through most of the game, but very, very, very fun. The story was pretty good. It wasn't amazing, but it was good. And yeah, this one still runs 60. It is the Switch. Unfortunately, kind of got it used to that. A lot of their main Nintendo games are just going to stay 60 most of the time, so be aware of that. But very, very fun, and definitely recommend giving that one a shot. All right, well, that's it for me. That is a huge list. There's lots of games to pick from. Again, I'm sure I've missed some, so you got some. Make sure you let me know in the comments so we can all find the good games. Keep an eye out on discounts. Black Friday's coming up, Cyber Monday's coming up, and you're sure to see a lot of these on sale. Yeah, so let me know if you end up picking any of these up and they work for you. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Good hunting.